Good morning, this is Keystroke Live, and I'm Mike Tabor, and today we're going to be going over some advanced POS features, and we're going to be talking about recurring billing. As normal, we have our Keystroke Live every Wednesday at 10 o'clock in the morning, and today we are going to be speaking about recurring billing. That is used to process, I call it monthly billing, but of course it could be annual or quarterly billing or weekly charges. We can use it to do memberships. We have people currently using it for different types of wine clubs. And of course we can use it to sell our Keystroke Platinum support plan, where you can charge your end users on a monthly basis for support, and we can charge you, and then you make your margin on that sale every month. We currently do use it for our Platinum support plans to both dealers and end users. Recurring billing. We'll go into Keystroke shortly, but I'll first go over this page. You can save multiple types of settings. So in the example for a wine club, we have an end user that uses it to do a Chardonnay club every month and then a white wine club every month. They also have people that are in state that are taxed, so they have a different group for those people. There's people that are out of state that are not taxed. And then they also have a shipping method that they can either do a will call, where people could come to their winery and pick it up every month, or they can have it shipped out to them at an extra fee. So they have different groups, and based on the customer's information, they can use that. And of course it does credit cards. That's the whole part of this. It talks to KeyPay. And so Keystroke can talk to KeyPay, and it can go ahead and just process the credit card. You can use different filters. I mentioned this on customer records. So these are the types of clubs, for instance. If you have different membership fees, you have a platinum membership, or you have a gold membership, and so forth. You can charge different pricing. You can do it just for your monthly your billing for, let's say, service plans. You being Keystroke resellers, you might have monthly billing for service plans. We can also just use it for different filters on transaction types. We'll be going over the setup screen and kind of create some simple groups, and we'll use different transaction types. And then one thing also I wanted to mention is that, which is not on the slide, that you can, when you get an approval on a credit card, of course it gets turned automatically into an invoice, but if you get a decline on a credit card, it goes into a transaction type that you select. So let's go ahead and jump over here into Keystroke. I'll get this going here. And I'll go ahead and get into Keystroke, and we'll look at the settings in Sales Manager, and then we'll set some things up, and we'll process some credit cards and or putting it on account. It does not have to be credit cards, that's the bonus, but you could do it just for creating monthly billing, like on accounts and so forth. For those of you that have been around with Keystroke and SBS for many, many years, we used to use an older program called Rec Merge, and that's where you take one data set on the side and merge those transactions into your live data set. But for many, many years, since 7.0 has been released, we're able to do it all in Keystroke. So let's go into Sales Manager, and let me start by showing you the settings for it. It's in Sales Manager. It's under the Special menu, and it's called Process Recurring Transactions. Whoops. So we'll go ahead and look at this. Here's kind of the setup screen. This starts out simple, but can be pretty much as complex as you want it to be. Normally you don't need all the functionality that's in here. I'm going to bounce around really quick. I've set up one or two transactions, and I'm going to look at them just to help me build something up here. I did this yesterday. I'm using this class field in this example here on a customer. CC would be for credit cards, and I think I set another one up, I think. This one is, I put a class as AR. You can use any field that you can filter on, and I'm just making notes to myself as what I'm doing here. So I'm going to clear the screen. Now let's go back under the Special menu under Process Recurring Transactions. So I can choose to set up a settings ID. This just helps me find things. For instance, if you have like a wine 2 or a wine 4. It would be like a 2-bottle club or a 4-bottle club and so forth. In my case, I'm going to do 3 things. I'm going to use an all setting that processes everybody. I'm going to set up a credit card setting, which I don't really necessarily have to, but I'm going to do it for this example. And I'm going to set up an AR or an AR only. Actually, I'm going to start this one for accounts receivable. So I'm going to call it AR, and I'll just give it the name. And here's where we say what we want to do with this. I'm going to start from a transaction type called recurring charge. And this is where you could put in different ranges of numbers and so forth, or you can use a filter. This is where I could say, for instance, I can filter on the transaction customers class field, and I can say if it equals accounts receivable, I only want transactions that have a customer that has a class of accounts receivable. Now, we could also do this just as kind of like reporting. It's got the same report engine in it. You could also say print individual, and this is where you would, during this process, the list of transactions would come up based on, basically it would be a list of recurring charges based on their number, and you just pick it off the list. You could also go up here and say based on the customer's name, so it would bring up a list and base it on the customer's name. But in my example, I'm not going to do individual. I kind of want to make this unattended where I don't have to pick off the list and process anything. So this one I'm going to leave it as is. And this is what happens here. So the to transaction type right here says, what do I want to make when things, what do I want to, what's the ultimate goal? Of course, mine is going to be a sales invoice. That's what I'm going to pick off the list. The alternate transaction type says, what do I want to do if a problem occurs with this transaction? This really pertains to credit cards when they get declined. In my case, I'm going to have them go to on hold. You could set something else up. You could set up one called, recurring declined transaction type if you'd like, but I'm just going to use on holds. Here's the date range. If I want to only look for a certain number of transactions, maybe the ones I did last year, I only want to process those, and maybe I'm not going to start next year's until maybe July 1st or something like that, in case I do a 6-month buckets or something. Again, this is going to keep this example very simple today, and you can make things as complicated as you like. But let's go ahead and take a look at some of the real power to this. We talked about a wine club. There's a section here called changes to transactions. If, for instance, let's talk about a wine club, then I'll talk about memberships. Let's say you have a 2-bottle Chardonnay club. So every month they get 2 bottles of Chardonnay. Now, you're not going to send them the same inventory item every month. That's going to be a pretty boring wine club. So you're going to want to, kind of keep it, with the current wines, for instance, or maybe some wines that are on special, or so forth and so on. So here's where you can actually take a transaction you've set up that has maybe 2 bottles of a standard wine that was the first introductory to the wine club. But then every month after that, you can change the line items. And here's how this works. While I'm in the changes to transactions, I'll hit the insert key. And this is where I'm going to say, give it a kind of a name. So I'm going to say replace line 1, line 1. Let's just do that. And here's some different actions. I can add an item to an existing transaction, or I can go ahead and take an item that's on a transaction and replace it with something else. And so here I'm going to just use this case for replace an item. Here's the locations is, do I want it to be the first line? Do I want to add it as the last line? Do I want to take the current line number where you'll pick like line number 2 and replace it with line number 2? Or I can specify a line number, or I can specify an inventory item. Maybe on this invoice I have 2 bottles of red wine and a shipping line. I might come in here and set up a couple of things. Replace line 1 and line 2, and then come in and don't touch line number 3. And I'm going to just show you some settings, but I'm not going to set it up this quick. If I went to this specify an inventory item, I would have to pick the old inventory item. So maybe it was the Merlot. Go find the Merlot on the line item, and am I going to add the line, because here I'm saying replace the line. Am I going to add a new line before this location? But no, I'm going to replace it. And then and so forth and so on. And then the new item is what I'm going to replace it with. Maybe I'm changing the 2008 Merlot to a 2007 Chardonnay. And here's where we can change pricing and so forth. I can come in here and change this. And for this example here, I'm going to do a little something different. I'm going to not specify a line. So I'm going to change this back. I'm just going to take the first line. Whatever's on that line, I'm going to replace it with a Chardonnay. And it's going to be, we're going to call it $21.99 because this is the wine club, and that's going to be the list price, maybe not the price when you walk in the door. So that's what it's going to be. If I want to roll up the cost or the price, I can do that in here if it's a component to something else, but I'm not going to even use some of this. And you can multiply the quantity. If the line item had a quantity of 2 and I put a 2 in here, they would be shipping 4. But if, in this case, I'm going to go ahead and not multiply the quantity. I'm just going to have that line be replaced, and it's going to be quantity of 1 with the Chardonnay. It's going to be $21.99, and I'm going to say OK. So there's an example of changes to transactions. I might come down to this line here and add something else. Maybe it's called shipping. And I'm just going to add a new line. It's going to be the last line item on the invoice. It's going to be an item, I think we got shipping and handling, and we're going to say it's going to cost $6 to ship it. And I'm not going to use this. And so here what I'm doing is I'm taking a transaction that's got, actually I know this transaction already has one line. We'll go look at it first and see what ends up happening. And then this one's going to be for accounts receivable only. For my test for credit cards, you'll see I'm going to do it for less than $10 because I'm using the KeyPay test account with Mercury. And here's where you can actually print invoices. I could set this up to go ahead and print out a full-page invoice to the printer. And so when I process, let's say, 100 transactions, there's going to be 100 packing slips or invoices that are going to print. And when that printer fires off in the warehouse, that means the warehouse person has something to do today, and they go get all this stuff, and they know it's wine shipping day, and they start packaging things up. For this example, I'm not going to use a print button. To confirm each transaction kind of just might be a good thing to do for your first time doing this. So here's a couple things. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to hit save. I'm not going to process because it's kind of like if you've ever used the production module. You save it as a template, and then you come back and you produce the item, or in this case, process the recurring transaction. So I'm going to click on Save right now. And it says settings were saved. So I'm just going to say OK. I could process it right now, but I'm going to go back out and take a look and show you what's going to happen. So I'm not going to click process. I'm going to click cancel. I could hit the escape key. So now I'm back to a sales transaction. What I'm looking for here, I'm going to page up, control page up through my recurring charges. A couple I've made just yesterday in preparation. 97 Chardonnay. Okay, this is a recurring charge. This is actually, I think the one I want to make it. We're going to change this recurring transaction. This could actually be a non-inventory item. This could be nothing, in fact. Let's look at the price. This is a Chardonnay for $20, and then there's, oops, I knew I messed with this yesterday. What I'm going to do here is go through here, and this could be a token item. I can just have a token item here. I'll just call it token item. It doesn't actually have to be anything in particular. This could be, you know, a $1 item or something like that. Doesn't have to be anything in reality because this is going to all be replaced. So let's just call this, this is a recurring charge, but the payment type is important. Whatever payment type I select on this transaction when I do process my recurring charges, it does come up and process this charge. I'm going to kind of do a few things here. I'm just going to make this transaction a new transaction with today's date on it. So it's going to be on account. So let's look at this transaction again. This transaction here, this transaction here has Ann's Big Store. They have a class that equals AR just for filtering purposes. Their current amount due is $8, if that's down here. And this is just a token item on here that's going to be replaced. So let's go take a look. I'm going to clear this transaction, and let's go take a look at my process reoccurring transactions. So go ahead and hit enter on this, and we'll take a look. Now that I've set one up, I get a small list. This is a list of one. But I could have 5 or 10 or 15 or even more different types of recurring transactions I want to process. I've set up one. I'll set up another one shortly here. So I go ahead and select the AR one. And this holds all my settings. Remember, we have a filter that the class equals AR. It's going to take it from a reoccurring charge, make it a sales invoice. If there's any problems with it, it's going to make it an on hold. What it's going to do, it's going to replace line number 1, that token item. It's going to replace that item. And let's take a look. I am going to now make it the Chardonnay. The list price is $20, but I'm going to make this invoice $21. And this will calculate tax. I believe this customer is non-taxable. I'm going to just jump around so we understand that. Tax. Where's my tax at? Tax table right here. This one says out of state. So this one should come up with the $21.99. I'm hitting escape a few times. This replace item, the $21.99 plus the shipping is $6. And there will be no tax on it, so it should be $27.99. And we won't print anything. We'll look at the transaction here. So I'm ready to go. All I need to do is click on process. And of course it tells me to make a backup. When this happens, a lot of stuff could happen. We have people that do 700 credit cards in one shot. So you want to make sure you have a backup. And I actually had 2 transactions. I had one that had a credit card customer on it, one that had accounts receivable. It went through the 2 of them. It said 1 invoice was created. You'll see when I get a decline that you'll see like 1 was saved as an invoice and 1 will be an on hold. And then you can actually go and look at your on holds or print a report to see what you did. So it's as easy as that. Looks like we're done here. I'm going to say OK. Now it comes back up to the list in case I had a big list and I wanted to do, let's say, the 4-bottle wine club and the 4-bottle white wine and the so forth and so on. So make sure you hit escape. Let me show you though, if I didn't notice I had already processed this and hit it again and I hit process a second time, it's going to kind of warn me differently. It says these settings have already been used today. Are you sure you want to do this? And if I just hit enter, the default is no. And it says it was abandoned. Brings up the list because maybe I've got a list of 25 and I've kind of got lost in my list and I'm like, oh boy, did I already do that one? You don't have to go charge your card and go raise havoc and fix it later. So anyhow, that was that example. Let's take a look at what happened. So I'm going to do control page up here to show the last invoice. Here's the last invoice that was just now created by the process. Here's the Chardonnay at $21.99, the shipping and handling. Notice that I guess I did my math wrong, $20.99. Oh, there must be a discount somewhere. Oh, there is tax. I thought I changed that, but we'll have to figure that out. So it's $29.80. It was put on account. And if I wanted to, here's where I could print a full page invoice. If I set it up to do that, it would look like this. This would be kind of just one of the invoices I have set up and so forth. And so we'll take a look here again. That was the transaction it created. And that's all good and done. So I'm going to now do some credit card ones here. I'm going to clear this sale. And let's pull up the recurring transaction. That's the one with the token item. I have another one I've set up. I just put like a mouse pad on here. Let's say this was, and I did this for $8. The reason why I did this is because I want to show an example of a credit card. This is also a very good place to secure customers' credit cards, is in the reoccurring transaction file. Right here, I've actually set this up yesterday, and I'll do a second one here shortly. I have a Visa MasterCard payment. It shows it's $8, but it actually didn't charge them the $8 because this is a recurring transaction. I'm going to make another transaction right here in front of you to show you what I did with this one. So I'm going to pull up customer number 12 here. I've already set them up with a class of CC for credit card. And I'm going to just go ahead and I can put on that token item here again. Or I could put on, and again I'm going to do this for the sake of this example. I'm going to use the same item. Let's imagine this mouse pad. Well, normally you wouldn't be sending them a mouse pad every month. But this could be a membership fee. And it could be, $8 would be kind of low, but it might be a weekly rate. The reason why I'm doing it under $10 is for the Mercury test card to get approved. So I can show you how that works. So I've gone ahead and I'm going to set this up now. This says sales invoice at the top. Notice this. I'm going to change the transaction type. I already know that the hotkey is a Control U. You see, because the U is down here as the hotkey, Control U. But I could go to the special menu and just change it automatically. So now it says recurring charge at the top. It's for $8. And I'm going to go ahead and select a payment. I'm going to do the Visa MasterCard. I used the Visa card on the other one. This one I'm going to use, I used the MasterCard on the other one. This one I'm going to type in a test Visa card. And the expiration date. And notice when I hit enter, it's not going to ask me for a CVV2 number, nor is it going to ask me to process it. Actually, it's going to save it. When it says payment saved, this actually sends the encrypted card number through KeyPay into a file called kprec.dat. It's the recurring transactions file. There's a transaction that holds the payment. The actual credit card data is secured in a DAT file by KeyPay, which is running right now as a service. So it says payment saved. So when I say OK, if I hit escape here, just look at it. Yep, they both end in the same number. It looks like it's a credit card, but it actually was stored securely. It's not actually been approved. So I'm going to hit F10. I'm going to save this. So now I have two recurring transactions. If I control page up, I've got this one for Ann's Big Store, and actually I changed that date to be in kind of in the future at 10:35, I think. Then we had the Big Bear Liquors, the one I just did, and Barney's Liquor Store. And notice that there's two recurring charges. Number one, I was using tutor data, and you probably wouldn't have that, but it does not matter because it's going to create a new invoice with a different number. So I'll clear the screen, and let's go back in and set up another recurring transaction. So let's set up another setting. I'm going to hit the insert key to add a second one. Where the first time I came in here, it showed me this screen. I'm going to call this, just for the fun of something different, call it member. And let's set this up as it's going to come from a recurring charge. I do want to use a filter, and I'm going to use the what's on the transaction, the customer's class again, and it's going to equal CC for credit card. And when the 2 is going to be an invoice, and it kind of remembered my alternate transaction type from before. Remember, it was layaway, but once I've saved one as on hold, it kind of remembers that. And In theory, I don't even need to use this changes to transactions. If I don't use it, all it's going to do, it's going to do the mouse pad, whatever's on that transaction. There won't be any replacing or anything. So if you set up your membership fee and you set it up for, let's call it, $39 a month. If it's $39, it's going to charge that customer $39. It's going to charge that same price. Nothing's going to be changed. There won't be any price changes. So we gave you an example of a token item with a $1 that got changed to a $20 item. And this is going to be a case where I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to have it process 2 transactions for $8. And I'm using 2 different credit card numbers. Otherwise, I probably would get a decline if I did a third one. So I'm going to go ahead and save this as a setting. And now I'm going to go ahead and just click process. And let's see what happens. Tells me to make a backup. And here's where it's going through Mercury Payment Systems. So here's where it checked 3 recurring transactions and made 2 invoices out of it. So I say OK. And now there's my list of 2. I don't want to process it again. If I did override it and process it again, I probably would get declined. I haven't tested that, but the Mercury account I think is set up to give you a decline for the same amounts. So let's take a look at my invoices here. So here we have an $8 Visa card, and this one actually went through to Mercury. This is a true invoice. Let's see if I hit F3 and view it. I don't have, but I could turn on the authorization code. Let's go do that just for the fun of it. I'm going to bounce around real quickly here. You don't need to pay attention to what I'm doing. If I turn on the authorization code, save this, and let's come back and take a look at that. This would have an actual real authorization code on it. So now I'm editing that sales invoice I just did. And here's the authorization code of 00057. And that would be, we could look on the Mercury portal, that would be there. It's never a bad idea doing this the first time to make sure all your transactions went to the bank. Here's the same item because I didn't make any changes, different credit card number. We'll look at its authorization code, and this one came back as 99999. Probably just based on the test card 1 and test card 2 that I'm using. But those are real auth codes. So another thing to verify, just to kind of wrap this up, is to go run a report. If you do a sales payment report, and notice here I'm looking at all transactions in standard transaction files. Notice how reoccurring down here is actually set to a different file, meaning the payments are stored with the transaction. They're not part of all these other payments. So I could actually go run a report every month. Let's do that right now. I could set this up, and I think I have a form before I get too far ahead of me. Yeah, I'm not going to do this at this time. This would be a report you could set up to actually go through your recurring charges. You as dealers, we can tell you that you can actually unmask the expiration date and see what the actual expiration date is. So some people will go run that report with a special form they've made showing the expiration date before they run it, because as time goes by, these cards will expire. And in the real world, a lot more cards now are being taken off the market, and so somebody that has a good card, there's some kind of fraud happened and they replace it with them. So you get more declines nowadays. Let's just go ahead and run a report right now. I'm going to go do this here. Sorry, group by payment detail, don't print if empty. So let's just show you what I did today. And this 647 one I did earlier just to make sure KeyPay was working. These are actually 2 different card numbers for $8. Here's the one for Ann's Big Store, and that went to on account. So you can actually reconcile this Visa MasterCard with your Mercury report when you process everything to see how things went. So I pretty much went through the whole process. I didn't get any declines to show you what happens, but trust me, they go to on holds and they sit there, and they do have the masked credit card number, so you know the last 4 digits, so you can call the customer and say, hey, I was processing your monthly billing and today, and we had it declined, and they can either give you a new card number, it might be expired, it might have been confiscated, or they're replaced by the company card holders. So I think that's all I have today. I'm going to go ahead and open up for any questions. Let me go ahead and first, let's see here. Just want to mention, next week we have Michael Gebb is doing his first Wednesday, so we'll talk to the president, Michael Gebb. So I've gone ahead and unmuted the crowd. If anyone has any questions for me about Keystroke, I can jump back in there, or if I didn't cover all bases, let me know.